What did you hear me say? What question are you answering? I often challenge people, stop them in a conversation with me and ask them these two questions. Like, what did you hear me say? Or what question are you answering? And I do that because it happens so often that I ask people something or I share something and I get a response for something totally different. And we all do this, right? We answer what is convenient for us to answer or for which we have a ready-made answer somewhere, rather than a difficult question, rather than something for which we do not know the answer or for which there is uncertainty. And earlier I used to just skip it and continue on that different tangent. And I would not interrupt. I would not in fact, I would be, like, to be very honest, I would be scared or hesitant in interrupting others or challenging others on, like, this is not what I asked. Or I shared something, like, how are these two things connected? So I would not be open and question people about it and let them just go on the tangent, because I would be, like, scared of how they might react, or getting into a conflict or getting into an argument. But now one of the questions which I regularly ask is that, what did you hear me say? Or, like, what question do you think that I asked that you're answering? And I slow people down and make sure that the conversation goes where I want it to go. And actually for the reason and for the purpose that we set up the conversation in the first place. And so often, I think so this happens for everybody, that we start somewhere, but without really realizing, we end up somewhere else 5 or 10 minutes or sometimes even an hour later, without actually addressing the meat of the topic, the main topic that we actually were supposed to discuss. So one of the things that I do is to say, slow down. What are you answering? What question are you answering? Or what did you hear me say? What are you responding to? And because otherwise, like, it's just like starting in one direction and going in the first detour and totally forgetting about the destination that we are actually heading towards. And that might be many things, but that is certainly not leadership. That is certainly not producing the results that you want to produce in the most efficient use of time or any other resource that you have. I would even call it timidity if people do that, because that eats up time, that eats up resources, that makes people confused and doesn't lead to any outcome, and especially not in the shortest or the fastest possible way. And if you want to make a difference in the world, right, you want to start with making sure that your conversations with people are having the effect that you want. If you want to produce an outcome in the future, if you want to create something as a result for yourself, for your team, for your company, you want to start with making sure that when you're meeting somebody for an intended reason and a purpose, that meeting actually happens for that intended reason and purpose, and not just whatever is convenient at that given point of time. And I will give you an example, right? A question which I often ask, and I also asked somebody very recently, in fact yesterday in a conversation, is what would you love to create? Right? Given this situation, what would you love to create as an outcome, as a result from here? And it's a very simple question. And the answer came in a very resigned and a very depressed tone, that I would really love to have this, but only if. So the answer was of a different question. And I've made the mistake, I have made that mistake before, of allowing people to continue on answering the question, what would you love to create, in a tone, or like starting with, I would really love to create this, but all of the reasons, right? So in a way, they have already given up. They have already surrendered that whatever that they are sharing is not possible. And that's not the question that I asked. I asked a question from a place of ambition, from a place of curiosity, from a place of openness. And the way the other person is answering the question is from a place of resignation, and is from a place of, like, there is no opportunity, there is no possibility, they have already given up. And this time I slowed them and I checked, what did you hear me say? And they said, like, this was their phrasing, their rephrasing of my question. And they said that they thought that I asked, what would I hope to create? What would I hope to create in this otherwise hopeless situation? While what I had asked was, what would you love to create given whatever the situation that you find yourself in? And I'm glad that I checked, because there's a world of difference between these two questions, what I shared and what the other person understood and actually answered. And then I said, I'm glad that I asked, because let me clarify, let me restate the question. And the question was, what would you love to create? Not from a place of hopelessness or resignation, but from a place of choice, freedom, and ambition. And then the person actually opened up and had actually, like, their mind, they were silent for a while because they were still thinking, they were dreaming. And then we had a conversation. Otherwise, we would have gone off on a tangent, and no matter how good a coach I am or whatever I might have said, it would not have worked, because in their mind, they were already answering from a place of hopelessness. They were already answering from a place of this is not possible. So if you are a leader, ask yourself this. When you ask people questions, when you are coming from a place of leadership, ambition, do people answer from a place of constraints? Do people answer from a place of this is not possible? Do people answer from that only if? Do people answer from the space of wishful thinking? Or do people answer from a space of I've done this before, I've tried this before, this doesn't work? This makes a huge impact in the results that you're producing. If you do not make sure that the conversation that you are having is the conversation that you intend to have, or the way people are responding to, are people are actually responding to what you're saying or whatever that they interpreted in their own minds about what you're saying. And let's assume what I want to communicate in my own mind, what I want to communicate to you if I'm talking to you, let's assume if that the entire communication is 100%. Even my ability to put it into words, to articulate it and to express it in the right tone of voice, I would say only 50% of what I actually intend gets communicated. So 50% is lost even in my speaking and my expressing of what is my intention actually behind it. And if I'm only able to express 50% of what I want to communicate, it goes the other way around. The other person also probably receives only 50% of what I managed to speak out in words. So effectively, what was my intention, the other person only gets around 25% of it. And this is not because I am missing something or I am wrong or I am a bad communicator or the other person is missing something or they are wrong or they are the bad communicator. This is just how human beings work. There are hundreds of things on our minds and we don't listen to what is being said or what is being intended in the entirety and accuracy of what is being said or intended. If I want to communicate a message and only 25% of that message is received, we are already talking about massive lack of performance results which will happen downstream. Instead of that, as a leader, if you can interject, if you can interrupt and make sure that 100% of what you want to intend is communicated and listened and understood in the same way, every other result that you want to produce downstream will become so much easier, become so much smooth, seamless, and you will avoid so many misunderstandings, miscommunications, stress, and toxic relationships downstream. So unless we slow down and double check with ourselves as well as with other person, this is a huge fucking problem. I have to say it like that. I see people just continuing to talk without really getting on the same page, or they start somewhere and they end up somewhere else. But this is a huge thing unless you can slow down and double check both with yourself, did I communicate what I wanted to communicate? And then with the other person, what are you responding to? What did you hear me say? This is a huge fucking problem. And this is why slowing down is probably the fastest way to get work done or to make results happen, and in the shortest, fastest, and the most efficient use of time and any other resource that you might have. Because when you slow down, as I often say, you access the vertical dimension of time. The horizontal dimension of time is the calendar time, is the minutes, is the seconds. You cannot get more of that. But the vertical dimension of time is when you slow down. You can do something which will have an impact, which will have a ripple effect on years, months, weeks to come. And that is the vertical dimension of time. If you can slow down, if you can double check, are you saying what you intend? And is the other person listening or answering to what you actually asked or shared? If you can just slow down and do that, you can save tremendous amount of time, calendar time, horizontal time in the future, which is why the vertical dimension of time is something which you can tap into, which is unlimited, which is infinite. And to wrap this up, take responsibility. As a leader, you have to take responsibility of not what you're speaking or not what you intend, but is this being communicated and is this being understood by the people who are on the other side? And if you can do that, if you can make sure you take responsibility to what is being communicated and what is being understood, your life and your results will become so much smoother. You will need to challenge people more. You will need to slow down in the short term, but your results downstream a few weeks or a few months or a few years from now will become so much better. Like they will grow up in quality. They will become easier without stress, without friction, without disappointments, without misunderstandings, and they will become faster and more efficient for whatever resources that you're trying to optimize for. Like I have to really emphasize that if you can just apply this one single thing in your life itself and your results will change beyond recognition. And you probably did not get half of what I wanted to communicate in this video. So now, slow down, go to the beginning of the video and watch the video again. And then do it again. And then do it again. To make sure that you get what I am actually intending here and the power behind this message. So watch this video again and again, slow down as much as you want to, and then take action based on that. And you will access the vertical dimension of time and you will produce results which are beyond impossible for you right now. So until the next time, keep slowing down, keep choosing leadership, keep deploying yourself.